Well, good morning and Shabbat Shalom and welcome. This is Valley Beth Shalom Torah study for a Shabbos Pesach morning. I'm Rabbi Ed Feinstein, joined this morning by my dear friend and teacher, Rabbi Marc Gellman. Marc, good morning, Hag Sameach, and good Shabbos.
Yeah, Zisen Pesach, my friend, Zisen
A
Pesach.
Zisen Pesach, a sweet and happy and healthy Pesach, and we pray that that's what we are all experiencing. We hope that there's peace in Israel from all of the turmoil there, and we hope that everyone here is finding a wonderful, wonderful holiday. This morning is Shabbos of Pesach, which is a very special moment. We've just finished 2 days of holiday, 2 Seders here in diaspora, of course. Marc, you've been leading Seders in South Florida. I've been attending Seders here in California. Lots of conversation, lots of questions, lots of learning at the table. So I'd like to designate this Shabbos not only as Shabbos Pesach, but as leftover Shabbos.
Yeah. What's in the storage jars?
What's in your fridge today? But really what I want to talk about are the questions left over from the Seder that we didn't get a chance to answer at the Seder table because we were trying to finish already and get to dinner. But these are important questions of learning. So I'll give you the first one, Marc. What's one of the questions left over from your Seder?
Well, it wasn't so much in our Seder, but between you and me and a bunch of Jews who care about the future of this whole Jewish enterprise, which I actually totally believe includes God. The question is, what is the impact of artificial intelligence on future Passovers? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't seem like there's immediately a connection between the two. Artificial intelligence is this game-changing computer evolution, really, in which computers can actually create. They don't just synthesize. It's not just looking up some articles about Christopher Columbus. It's about writing a letter that Christopher Columbus would have written back to Ferdinand and Isabella, and actually writing that. It's affected everyone. It's affected college admissions because one of the ways that artificial intelligence has impacted people is this program ChatGPT, which can create, within parameters that you give it, a completely new work of art or essay or whatever. And you have nothing to do with it. You just put in the dimensions and it writes it out for you. So an admission letter, an essay for college admissions, there's no way a college can know if you wrote that essay or if ChatGPT wrote that essay. And so I'm thinking about the Passover Seder. And it turns out that while I was thinking about it, my daughter Mara, up in Westlake Village, sent me a whole Haggadah written by ChatGPT. Some of them are Shakespearean parts of the Seder. And to give you just an example of this, here's a poetic, it just says to the computer, write me a poetic introduction for a Passover Haggadah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, understand how new this is. This isn't look up all the introductions to Passover Haggadahs that have ever been written and give me some of them. No. What I'm about to read to you was composed by a computer. And here it is. Gather round, dear ones. It is that time of year when the story of Passover draws near, a tale of triumph, of struggle, and of pain, of a people's freedom, hard won again and again. With matzah and wine, we'll retell the tale of Moses and Pharaoh, of the Red Sea's gale, of plagues and miracles of a nation's birth, and the lessons we've learned passed down through the earth. We'll sing and we'll pray, we'll eat and we'll share. We'll remember the past and show that we care for the future that's yet to unfold in our hands as we gather together united as one band. So let us begin this Passover night with hearts full of joy and spirits so bright, as we open our Haggadah and join in the refrain of Dayenu, let my people go, and the blessings we proclaim.
Listen, my children, and you shall hear of a story of our Moses
Bride of
dear.
Paul Revere.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. I'm all right.
Okay.
So
Hey,
they
I'm
can
not
teach a
saying it's
computer to create mediocre poetry. It's
fine. At
Well-
that point, I agree. It's
Right.
mediocre, but it's a computer that
Right.
did it.
All right. So let's ask the question in the right way. The question is, the next great technological revolution that is going to come upon us, and it's here already, but it's really going to come upon us soon, is the advent of artificial intelligence, which means that so many of the functions that we're used to doing face to face with human beings will now be done with machines. Will now be done with machines. I had a long talk with my doctor the other day, who's talking about how effective it's been to put medical records on computers. But what he's worried about now is the temptation to have an artificial intelligence replace a physician, at least for some of the kinds of things. And the question of what can be replaced by a machine and what can't be. The intuition of a physician who looks you in the eye and touches you and feels your discomfort or your pain, your dis-ease, and the healing sense of a physician, which is a person-to-person contact. Teaching is another aspect where you'll have artificial intelligence could teach a fifth grade classroom. Kids just have to log in and listen to the computer, tell it whatever the kids are supposed to be learning. At what point do we say there are certain functions which can only be done by human beings and can't be done by machines? And at what point are we willing to let machines take this over? I'm not real comfortable at the moment getting into a driverless car, but I'm sure that within 20 years or 10 years, that'll be the norm. Cabs will be driverless. Trucks will be driverless. Even airplanes maybe will be driverless, pilotless. So that I imagine that's going to happen.
And how about us? How about
us?
rabbi-less synagogues?
Yeah.
Sermons created by ChatGPT.
Well, apparently a friend of mine did this, or he did this. He was giving the sermon about this very topic. And what he does is he gave the sermon, and then when people said that was nice, he said, no, you don't understand. I didn't write a word of that. ChatGPT wrote that whole sermon.
Right.
And then they had the conversation of what's a rabbi for.
Exactly. Or you have a cheder, you have a religious school class. And at the moment, kid goes in, they sit in class, the teacher teaches, and the teacher has to go to each kid. And while he's going or she's going to each kid, they're sitting there. They may or may not have anything to do while the teacher's with another child. But with artificial intelligence, the teacher is with them completely.
Yeah.
All the time. And they work with the teacher, the artificial teacher. And then the family, you have an artificial rabbi giving an artificial sermon on Shabbat. I guess Shabbat would still be real. And then what artificial bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs done on screens that have some animated rabbi doing it. And what is it? And a funeral, you talk to someone who interviews you, you find out as an intake for a eulogy, if you find out that's a computer talking to you, and they give a eulogy. And then what do we do? What do we do that a machine could never do?
Well, same thing. So my doctor says to me, he says, look, there's so many of the sort of technical functions of medicine that could be done theoretically by a robotic or a holographic doctor or nurse practitioner. He said, but in the end, I like to believe that this is a human-to-human transaction, that I'm not simply a technical biochemical agent. I am a human being who is trained as a healer, and that my interaction with my patient helps the patient become whole again and become healthy again. And I said, I have to agree with you. Same thing with teaching. I'd like to think that teaching is as Martin Buber said, an I and thou connection between souls. And I'd like to think that the rabbinate is of that ilk. There's certain things I wouldn't mind getting rid of. There's certain kids I wouldn't mind passing to a computer for a bar mitzvah. Yeah, there are those. That's true. But most of all, I enjoy the tech. I think that we enjoy, all of us, the connections. Remember, there was a very famous futurist named Alvin Toffler, who wrote a very famous book called Future Shock. And one of his principles was high tech, high touch. The more of our lives that are taken over by technology, the more time we spend staring into screens, the more we crave human to human connection and human to human transactions. And so maybe indeed, let's think positively for a moment. Maybe indeed that the more that functions of the culture are taken over by technology. I don't have to see the bank teller. I use the ATM. I don't have a supermarket checker. I use a self-checkout. Or I go to Amazon. You don't check out at all. It tells you what you bought. Right. The more I crave a connection with people, a conversation with a person, a soul-to-soul connection, the more we understand how that's rare and precious and valuable and something to be cultivated.
That's true, and that's a lovely way to say it, and it's a beautiful reflection of the way you've led your rabbinate, and I hope that I had led mine. But the truth of the matter is that there's lots of synagogues where people feel a gap between themselves and the rabbi, and they don't feel that there's been a real outreach to their soul, and they don't feel that they've been recognized or acknowledged or healed in that spiritual way. And so this way, with a machine, you have someone that can listen to you, absorb your questions, and give you an actual answer, and begin a dialogue. There, movies. She, I guess, was the one where a guy falls in love with a computer voice, and so the question, and then there's the question. Really, to be honest about this, there's an efficiency of scale, of economic cost. You say to somebody, here's a virtual shul with a virtual classroom run by artificial intelligence. And because of donations from the community of the country, this is free for you. Every Jew in America, free education, free Jewish education. And whatever ceremonies you want, that's included in the program. And you want to talk to other people in the class, you can have human interaction with them, but all of a sudden this becomes universal synagogue membership. We don't have a model that would allow universal synagogue membership. And in fact, you and I both know that we have confronted often, Rabbi, I can't afford organized Judaism, the cost of synagogues, the cost of the school, blah, blah, blah. And, it's hard to really give a convincing answer to that other than we need to pay our bills. But what if this game-changing computer technology of artificial intelligence, what if it changes the whole way that we have access to things? That synagogue membership is not just for people who can afford dues, but it's for everyone who's Jewish or who is a searcher, a seeker. They could come in and learn as much as they want. I think there's a lot to this that we cannot stop, and I'll say it straight. There's a lot to this that I don't know if we should stop.
What can't be done by machines? That's the question.
Well, I would like to think that the most important work we do is with people in grief. That when somebody you love dies, you want another human being, you want your rabbi to call you and talk to you and come over and sit with you at Shiva and say, tell me about this person.
Yeah, your rabbi, that phrase, it says it all.
Yeah.
That phrase
I
says
think
it all.
that's one thing. Life cycle rituals, I think, you want that. I think, so that's birth, marriage, death. I think it's hard to imagine a computer fitting in with that. I think that there are other things that we do is we look around the corner. That is, we look at, and we have the capacity through preaching and teaching to talk about things that are going to come up in Jewish life that no one has seen yet. And we talk about them. I'd like to think that some of my midrashim, no matter how good the computer is, they could not have invented what I composed.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to believe that level of creativity and midrash creation, that you need a darshan for that. You need somebody who can take the text, turn it over, and reprocess it that way. I think we need rabbis, because there are times when Sheino Yodea Lishol, where people call and they don't know exactly what they want to ask, but they just know they want to talk to you. And our job is to figure out what the questions are that they really wanted to ask.
Right.
You're so good at that.
No, that I think is very important. That's what my doctor was reflecting on.
Yeah. So those are some things. What do you think?
No, I think you have it exactly right. I think that this is one of the professions where, you can get a computer to write your sermon, but you can't get your computer to replace you for certain kinds of human to human contact that we desperately need. Desperately need. So that's one of the questions for leftover. I'll give you another one that we did. This was one from my brothers and I, when we were kids, this was one of the famous ones. We used to read the verses of Dayenu. And it's a wonderful song, Dayenu, right? It's at the very end of the story. We've crossed the Red Sea in the telling of the story. And the narrative stops. And we sing this song that says, it wasn't just one miracle, it was a whole series of miracles. And any one of them, Dayenu, would have been enough for us. And that's a beautiful thought. I mean, to count your blessings and to recognize all of the miracles, all of the blessings. But we used to read them, and some of them were a little, like, one of them was really funny. There was the funny one was, Ilu hevianu lahar Sinai v'lo natan lanu et Torah. If you had brought us to Mount Sinai and not given us the Torah, Dayenu. Well, that would have been great. Like, we're here.
Yeah.
Is something supposed to happen?
Exactly.
Put a quarter in a slot and put it in, and then then I found, believe it or not, I found this in a commentary on the Haggadah, written by some obscure Hasidic rabbi. He commented on that, and this is what he said, which was so interesting, and I brought it back to my Seder. He said, no, it's true. Sometimes the being ready for the miracle is the miracle. That sometimes being open to hear the voice, sometimes being open to gain the truth, sometimes being prepared to change in your own life is itself the change, is itself the miracle, is itself the opening, that you're open to that. And that Ivu Hevianu Lahar Sinai recognizes that if we had come to Mount Sinai and we came ready to listen, ready to hear a voice, ready to hear truth, ready to change, ready to become free people, we wouldn't have needed the voice at all. That the voice really wasn't the point. It was our readiness for that, our openness to that. You think of all of the times in life when you rush into a circumstance and you're not ready to hear the voice of the other person. You think about how many times I've had an argument with my wife or my friend, my family, because I know I'm right, and you don't go in listening to say, well, tell me what you think. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I need to grow. Tell me what I forgot. Tell me what I ignored. that openness is itself a miracle, a gift, a growth, an evidence of some spiritual growth. And now when I read that, I say, that's a nice one. That's
It
a
is a
deep,
nice one.
that's a very nice, deep truth. That's
I
a
agree.
very nice, deep truth.
I love that. I have always had problems with Dayenu because I don't think on the surface that it's right because of what you just said. The truth is that once you start a miracle chain, give us the Torah, give us Shabbat, they all have to be in the chain. Otherwise, the chain gets broken and it doesn't make any sense. The idea is that all of these miracles together were required. It would not have been enough if only one or another of them had been given to us. It would not have been enough. So then I asked myself, so what's the point of Dayenu? If they all were actually needed, and if the song isn't really accurate to what we believe. So I think the answer is that Dayenu is an attempt to teach us sequential gratitude.
Ooh, very good.
I call it sequential gratitude. I thought up that phrase just now. But sequential gratitude is when the only other example I can think of now is your love for your wife or her love for you. You can't say what you're thankful for that your wife loves you or you love her. You have to say, I'm thankful that she smiles at me in a way no one else can. She knows when I'm wrong and has a way to tell me without destroying me. All the different things that I love about her. And each one is a thank you. Each one requires a thank you. So when you talk about the greatest of all the miracles God ever does for us, which is getting us out of Egypt and giving us the Torah, taking us to the land, that whole Exodus narrative, as you call it, which ends up in the land. If you think about that, each little piece of it requires gratitude.
Yeah.
And you can't say, thank you for taking us out of Egypt. It's too big. It's like eating the whole cookie. You have to eat a piece of the cookie to understand how it tastes.
Yeah.
And then another piece. Oh, that's so good. Oh, that is good. And that's what I think Dayenu is about. It's about teaching sequential gratitude.
Yeah. Because gratitude is the first step out of the ego.
Yes.
And if you think of slavery, one of the worst forms of slavery is the slavery of the person who says, I am responsible for everything that I did. I am the self-made man. And I'm all of this is my creation.
Yes.
And that kind of egotism and worship of the self is so destructive. So the first thing you got to do is kick the guy in the head and say, you have received so many miracles that everything that you have in the world was given to you by the self-sacrifice of somebody before you.
Yeah.
And the giving and loving of someone before you. So don't, yes, you accomplished a great deal, and there's no question about it, right? In the book, what is it? The book of Deuteronomy, where Moses says to the people, you're going to move into the land and you're going to move into houses you didn't build, and you're going to cultivate fields you didn't plow, and you're going to reap harvests that aren't yours, and you're going to say, by the power of my own hands, look what I did.
Yeah.
So gratitude is the first sort of breaking of that egotism, that self-centeredness, and opening up the self to say, I am the recipient of so much more than I could have asked for. And therefore, I owe those beyond me. And I owe gratitude to those who brought it to me. And I owe those, and I open my hand to the other. And it's actually a very powerful corrective to one of the diseases of the spirit. That's
beautifully said.
Yeah,
that's terrific. I think that's exactly the truth. There is I like to just take a moment to talk about things that are irritating about that, because, or to say it a different way, the deficiency of a non-Dayenu thinker. At the end of the Seder, I always require that there be Israeli chocolate bars for the children.
Yeah, very good.
Because I want to support Israeli industry, and also because I'm part of the generation where everyone got a trophy, not just the one who wins, but everyone who participated. I understand that's not the way it is in real sports, but so everyone gets a chocolate bar. So I'm doing I'm doing Seders in my past, and I won't say when and where, but quite often, mostly, just about all, but not all the children who come up, they get the chocolate bar and they turn around and they leave. And then often their mothers or fathers are there. They say, what do you say? What do you say? Then they know they have to say thank you. But it wasn't natural for them. The thank you was, oh, let me just get out of here. I'll say thank you, then I can get out of here. This natural ability to say thank you for gifts is disappearing. And it's another obstacle of the ego. It's, I'm here to be served. I'm here to be given things. And there's no reason to say thank you because this is what I deserve.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
It's for every grandmother or mother would slap the kid and say thank you to your grandmother,
Right. What do you say? That question.
What do you say? Right.
What do you say?
Yeah.
And of course, what it really means is, hey, say thank you. Say please and thank you. If there's one thing to teach your kid, it's say please and thank you.
Right. Right. So one last thought before we finish today. So I was 17 years old before I realized that the Seder did not end when my dad leaned back and fell asleep and complimented my mother. The Seder has a second half. And the second half, I think, is, and many families never get to this because they leave after dinner. But the second half is our dreams. The first half of the Seder is the Exodus that was, Pesach Shavar. And the second half is the Pesach Latid, the Passover that is yet to be. And it's all about messianic dreams. It's in the second half that we sing Eliyahu Hanavi, and we open the door to welcome Elijah into our homes. Elijah is the precursor of Mashiach. It's in the second half that we say L'Shana Haba Yerushalayim. And while that's a beautiful thought to go back to Israel and celebrate Pesach, which you should do once in your life, because it's just a marvelous time to be in Israel. What it really means is a Jerusalem Shebnuyah, the Habanuyah, the Jerusalem that is rebuilt. And then you get to the end of the Seder and all the wonderful songs. And the last one that we sing, and in my house, it's very ruckus because we do animal sounds, is Chad Gadya.
Yeah, right.
You have a goat and a cat and a dog and a stick and a fire. Right. It's I know an old lady who swallowed a fly. Yeah. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. The last verse of Chad Gadya is Ve'ata Kodesh Baruch Hu V'shachat L'malcha Mavis. Yeah. God comes and destroys death. And
life after death, baby.
Or life eternal. The idea is that the last word of the Seder, the last line of the Seder, is an affirmation of a messianic dream of a world that isn't yet, but a world that we staunchly pray for, that we deeply, deeply pray for. And so the second half of the Seder, I guess it's because you've already had a lot of wine and you're in a sort of mellow mood because you finished dinner, is really about our dreams. And the question that we always ask at the end of the Seder is go around the table, if everyone's still tuned in, and tell us your dreams. What's the dream that animates you this year? What's the dream that's going to carry you through the next year, through the next seasons? What's the dream that you're hoping for and working for and praying for and looking for? And it's always been a very beautiful time in the Seder if people are really tuned in, because that dream, that question of I have a dream, and a dream animates me, is a deeply Jewish impulse. We are a people deeply, deeply impressed with our past, impressed in the serious sense that the past presses upon us and shapes us and makes us who we are, committed to faithfulness to our past. But we're also a people deeply faithful to our future, to a dream to a dream that moves us forward. And that's what the second half of the Seder is all about. So what dream animates you, Gellman, this year, this season, tomorrow?
I've always, I don't have many mantras, but I have a couple. And one of them is the rabbinic teaching, act always that any insult against you is a minor insult. And any insult that you deliver against someone else is a major insult. I've always tried to live that way. And I think my dream is a world in which people can let go of these hostilities and perceived actual or imagined insults and just cut people some slack and live with them with a level of kindness and humility. It seems to me that beyond all the great national catastrophes and international tensions, the one dream I have is that our interactions with other people, particularly those we love and friends and family, could just be more kind and less assertive and less argumentative. If that could happen, every other dream I have would not matter.
That's a beautiful dream. That's a really lovely dream. Thank you. So I'll echo that. During the pandemic, at the height of the pandemic, when things were nuts, Nina and I went to the supermarket, and you remember you couldn't get toilet paper and paper towels of all things. And I remember standing in line, a very long line at the supermarket, and there was a fellow ahead of me who had like an 18-pack of, I don't know how he found it, but he was one of the guys who was just on the right place at the right time. And there was an 18-pack of toilet paper. And there was a woman standing behind me who said, God, I wish I had seen that. I have kids at home and I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. And the guy looked at her and he tore open the pack of toilet paper and he took out about 8, 9, 10 rolls and he tossed it over me into her cart. And she said, why are you doing that? And he said, because in times like this, we all got to take care of each other. And then the most wonderful thing was when she got to the checker, she looked at the checker and the checker said, I don't know how to ring this up because I don't have a code for individual rolls of toilet paper. So go ahead, go ahead. And you're like somewhere deep in the heart of human beings, there's something called common decency. There's something called common decency. And somewhere there's an impulse to solidarity. And somewhere there's an impulse to kindness. Somewhere. And I know that so often it's cruelty and selfishness and you know, and just callousness that we see. But we also see this other thing. And maybe I've always wondered whether the world is sort of balanced. You know, God created a world which is balanced. And as long as those who still maintain a cultivation of common decency, you know, remember that that's their task in the world, that keeps the world moving. So my dream is a world of decency, solidarity, and kindness. And I don't think it's beyond us. Marc, I wish you a happy Zisen Pesach, a happy, sweet, and a happy Passover. Thank you for answering all my questions. And to everyone listening, a very good Shabbos and a very good Pesach. We're going to take some time off now, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm leading a group. I was drafted to lead a group on the International March of the Living. The story of this is very touching, actually. You know that the longest walk in the world is the walk between Auschwitz and Birkenau, between the concentration camp and the extermination camp. And when the war ended, the Jewish community of the world organized a walk of the living, a march of the living, a march of life, to recreate the horror death march, but to do it with song and celebration that we have survived and we continue to thrive. And every year, thousands upon thousands of Jewish young people, Jewish and Christian young people, descend upon Auschwitz and Birkenau to make this march. And some years ago, they started inviting grown-ups. So I've never been. I was invited to lead a group, and I have about 60 people coming from my community, and they invited me to lead. So for these next 2 weeks, I'll be in Poland, leading the March of the Living. And then following that, I'm going to be going to Israel to celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut. So Marc, we're going to take 2 weeks off, and we will commence the first week, the first Shabbos in May. And to everyone who is a faithful watcher and listener of our Torah study, I'll urge you to read Rabbi Gellman's wonderful midrashim, which are available on Amazon and everywhere on these parshiot. And we will commence our Torah study beginning in May. I want to wish you Aziz and Pesach, a very meaningful Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron, and a very joyful 75th anniversary of the State of Israel. Shabbat Shalom and good
Shabbat Shalom.